Willie and Jimbo are in town at Chef Tom's, waiting for the promised food.
Hey fellas, there you are. I've been looking for you all along. I've got an interesting game,
Lloyd echoed enthusiastically. Willie and Jimbo didn't look too happy. Before Jimbo could ask, Lloyd was running out of town. I can't believe this, Jimbo said. The boys followed Lloyd. They had to give up their food. But as they went leaving, the cook shouted at them, I'll leave the food then. Willie was glad, so he followed Jimbo with a smile. Where's that Lloyd? He's coming this way, Jimbo thought. Right outside the town, suddenly he saw Lloyd sitting near Mr. Jones's farm.
Hey, I'm here, buddies,
Lloyd called out to them. Jimbo and Willie walked towards him. What are you doing now, Lloyd? Jimbo asked. Lloyd stood up holding his hat. It looked like Mr. Jones's favourite hat. He then pointed to the ground where there was another one. Wow, you're crazy, Jimbo stated. Meanwhile, Lloyd was pointing and trying to convince them how the farmer had another hat hidden away.
It would be a real hoot, and most importantly, no one would bother us, Lloyd continued.
We'd be up for it, Willie declared. Willie didn't want to be the good boy who kept away anymore. He wanted to do something adventurous like his friends, so Jimbo agreed. The boys approached the farm. Lloyd watched the action.
Okay, it's somewhere out there. I'll stay behind the barn.
Willie looked behind the barn, and without letting anyone know, he started running.
Wow, that Willie's got some guts, buddy,
said Lloyd. Jimbo watched Willie. He wasn't going to leave him alone on this one, but Jones was already coming. He was heading out of the woods. Jimbo had no idea. He started to run after Jones. Hello, Mr. Jones. How are you today? Jimbo tried to stall the farmer, but he wouldn't let up, merely replied gruffly, Fine. Where have you been? Jimbo continued his efforts. What's it to you that you have no interest of your own? Jones replied. He didn't like the boys very much. They were too noisy and did all sorts of mischief for him. Even now, he doesn't even know it. Just when Jimbo thought it was hopeless, Willie started waving his hat from around the corner. Jimbo started laughing. This can't be happening. Willie started playing with the hat, and he was bouncing around the farm. Jones, meanwhile, went to the farm to relax. Where are all my hats? Willie, Jimbo, and Lloyd all laughed. I told you, fellas, this is real fun. Suddenly, they saw Jones speeding towards their house. So now I'm really curious about how this is going to turn out, Jimbo said. Willie answered him. Does it matter? We'll just get out of this somehow. Jimbo didn't like this style of Willie. Jimbo came up with an idea to get out of it. They just successfully stole, so Jimbo tried to explain how they do a reverse robbery. So we're just going to give the hats back? Lloyd asked. Jimbo, who already had his back turned and was heading towards the farm, answered, Yes, we'll just do it the other way around this time. Each of the boys had one hat. They stood in the middle of the farm thinking about where they could put them. You've been here before, Lloyd, so tell me, Willie urged him on. Jimbo put his hat on some boards. He wasn't too sure about it, but it was better than Lloyd trying to throw it into the chickens. What, you crazy? He'll be here in a minute, Jimbo shouted at him. You're still scared of everything, Willie, who was standing behind them, spoke up and threw the hat into the hen house. Even Lloyd got a shock from that. What did you do? Willie just smiled and walked away. Come on, we're not going to get caught, said Willie, and he left. Lloyd tried to put his hat somewhere, but there was nowhere that he liked. He kept looking towards the barn, thinking he wasn't stressed in any way. He was perfectly calm. Jimbo tried to get into the chicken coop, but to no avail. There's no way he did that, Jimbo thought to himself. Suddenly, he raised his head and his eyes. You, Lloyd, he began nervously. If you want to get out of here, hurry up, because Jones is already back from his walk. Lloyd was getting uncomfortable. What am I supposed to do now? He wondered. He finally saw a cool place, on the ground next to the straw that Jones regularly stacked there. That's a great spot, he smiled proudly. Meanwhile, Jimbo ran past him. He bumped into him and said, If you don't want to get into trouble, we gotta get out of here fast. So, Lloyd hurried after him. Willie wasn't there. I think he went home, Jimbo said. When Jimbo and Lloyd reached their house, Willie was sitting on the patio watching. That was really funny, he declared. What's gotten into you? What gave you the idea to throw that into the chicken coop? Jimbo was really angry. He knew that all three of them were going to get this one. Willie didn't seem bothered at all. And how could he, seeing as both of his friends were acting like this? Why couldn't he do something crazy too? It was time to walk into town to see Tom and have the food he'd prepared for them. When they entered town, they were now without Lloyd, since he had to go to his house already. Jimbo noticed something. Could it have been Jones? That's nonsense, he thought. What would he be doing here now? He was probably so hungry by now that he was dreaming things, and they weren't even real. But when they approached the place where Tom was cooking, Jones was there with him. Willie and Jimbo hid behind the house, hoping he was just here for dinner. Jimbo, however, wanted to be 100% sure. He'd walked a little bit on his own. "Have you seen those two little boys today?" Jones asked. "You mean Willie and Jimbo?" Farmer Jones thought for a long moment and then answered, "I guess so." Tom said afterwards that he'd never seen those two. He must have been lying because he figured they were probably flying around in some troubles again. Jones finally walked away. He walked towards the boys. Jimbo managed to hide, but he was alone, leaving Willie behind. He could only hope he did too. As the farmer was leaving, he turned into the alley where Jimbo and Willie had been earlier. "Oops, hope he didn't find him there," Jimbo hoped. Willie saw Jones coming towards him. He had to look fast for a place where he wouldn't find him. "That was you!" Jones began to shout. Willie started to run and so did Jones. It didn't take long for Willie to run into a dead end. There was nowhere to run and Jones was coming towards him with words. "I've got a lot of work for you, Willie." So Jones and Willie left town together. Jimbo looked for Willie, but he was nowhere to be found. Neither was Jones. Cautiously, he tried, "Hey Willie, are you still around?" No one answered. That's when Tom the cook approached him. "I'm scared now," Jimbo shouted. "I just want to tell you that the farmer was here and took Willie to his place," Tom replied. Jimbo knew this was going to happen today. Jimbo walked with Tom back to his food stand. He was hungry and knew Willie was in no danger, at least not lots of danger. Jimbo fed and fortified, decided to go back to rescue Willie. He was at the farm, watching.
"So, where were you?"
Lloyd was playing with his hat. He didn't return it to its place after all.
"Those guys are crazy,"
he thought to himself. As he walked around the woods thinking about his next big adventure, he met Jones.
"Well, I guess I'm just dreaming now."
He quickly hid behind a bush and watched the situation. It couldn't end well for him. Jones walked towards him as if he knew Lloyd was hidden there. Lloyd had to go around the bush, and as soon as he got the chance, he started running. Jones spotted him, and he ran after him. Lloyd made it all the way to the treehouse where Willie and Jimbo lived. He was relieved, and this time he actually got rid of his hat. He threw it away and it landed on the terrace of the house. Oops, so he went back to get it and was about to throw it better when he heard, "That's one of my hats!" Lloyd got such a shock that he fell off the patio. He sat up. Ouch! This was not pleasant. Jones grabbed him and took him back to the farm.
"No, wait, I didn't do anything."
Lloyd started to make excuses. The farmer wasn't listening to him at all.
"It was Willie and Jimbo, they got this idea."
Lloyd wanted to get out of this mess no matter what. The job wasn't for him. "And if you say so, where are your two friends?" Jones asked. They continued on their way. Lloyd had no idea, so he had to stop. Jimbo was watching the situation. He noticed Lloyd walking towards the barn.
"He got both of them, but I can only save one,"
Jimbo thought to himself. Jones is being especially strict today, so Jimbo went to the farm. He had to distract Jones somehow. And he still didn't know who he was going to save today. Willie deserved to be punished today because he was acting like a senseless man. But Lloyd came up with the idea again. Plus, Willie was his best friend, so Jimbo decided to go ahead with his plan. He walked over to the chicken's coop where Mr. Jones's hat still was. His plan was to release all of Jones's chickens and then rescue one of his friends. Who would he save? That would be decided by simplicity, so he began to explore the coop.
"How does this stupid thing work?"
He kicked it and nothing.
And I see something."
But Jones was getting closer. He ducked quickly. Jones just took his hat and walked away. "Who threw my hat in there anyway?" he asked. Both Willie and Lloyd were silent. Willie was busy in his flower bed and Lloyd was doing something around the barn. Jimbo already knew how to chicken coop when he saw Jones, but now he was taking a chance on seeing him in action. So Jimbo walked from the chicken coop to the barn. Lloyd was standing by it. He could help him with this idea.
"Hey Lloyd," he whispered. "Come on Lloyd, here I am."
He tried a little louder this time. Lloyd turned around. He smiled.
"There you are, buddy. Are you coming to save us?"
Lloyd asked. Jimbo explained what he needed to do to initiate his plan.
"Sounds simple enough,"
Lloyd answered him. So Jimbo went back to his seat and waited.
"Hey Mr. Jonesy, I've got a spill,"
Lloyd began to yell. "Jesus, you can't even work for a little bit without messing something up." As Jones walked towards him, Lloyd began to panic. He kicked a bucket. Jones looked at it. "I'll just take that and you can keep working." Jimbo, meanwhile, was opening the chicken coop. He wasn't very good at it, but he'd found the right lever. The door opened and all the chickens left the coop and began to roam the farm. Jones immediately ran to see what had happened. Meanwhile, Jimbo had picked up Willie and together they ran away from Mr. Jones's property. Lloyd didn't make it. He stayed on the farm. Jones quickly chased all the chickens. So Lloyd helped the farmer instead of running off the farm like Willie. Willie and Jimbo were having a great time.
You see that too?
Jimbo said with a laugh.